Okay, so this lesson, quadratic equations, hopefully you understand what's the meaning of the word quadratic here. It means that this is second degree. So quadratic here means second degree equation. A second degree equation is an equation in which the highest power of the unknown is 2. Okay? So I wish that I didn't erase this equation. Do you remember in our equation in the quiz, when we solved it, when we expanded, there was x squared involved in the equation. In principle, that's a quadratic equation, but all those equations, x squared term cancel. So even though technically speaking, those equations, for example, the equation we had for the quiz just a few minutes ago, was a quadratic equation, but it reduced immediately to a first degree equation because the second powers were eliminated from both sides of the equation, and what was left was the highest degree one. Okay, but sometimes it is inevitable. Of course, you already have some of these quadratic equations in Math 1C. For example, can you give me an example of a quadratic equation that we studied in Math 1C, probably without phrasing it like that? Yes? Yes?
x2 plus...
No, very simple one. You want to find a very simple one that you want to solve. X squared is 4. Yes? In principle, that was a quadratic equation, wasn't it? X squared is equal to 4. And I've asked you to find all possible values for which this holds. And then I told you, do you remember Math 1C way of solving this? What was that? Yes?
Square root plus 1.
Yes, we have to take a square root from both, but put plus and minus. The square root of x squared is x. So this becomes x is equal to plus or minus 2. So it doesn't mean that we didn't know anything about quadratic equations. Yes, we did, because we could solve this equation in Math 1C without phrasing it as a quadratic equation. Okay, we could do better, by the way. For example, I can write x squared, 2x squared plus 5 is equal to 9. Or let me even write it something like this, 10. Could we solve this one? What type of equation is this? It's a quadratic equation. Why? Because the highest power of the unknown is 2, and it cannot be eliminated. We have to live with it. So how can we solve that problem? That was also a Math 1C problem without phrasing it in that language. So how can I solve this? I move 5 to the other side. Yes, it becomes 5. Why? 10 minus 5 is 5. And then I divide by 2. It becomes 2 comma 5, for example. And then I am looking for x. What x is? Plus or minus square root of 2 comma 5. Okay, so how many answers I got here? 2. How many answers I got here? 2. Can you give me a quadratic equation that has exactly one answer? The simplest possible quadratic equation that has exactly one single answer rather than 2. Yes?
X squared minus 1 equals 4.
Equals?
4.
No, x squared minus 1 equals to 4. If you want to find it, you move 1 to the other side, it becomes 5. Still x becomes plus or minus the square root of 5. Still there are 2 solutions. Yes?
X squared equals 0.
0. X squared equals to 0. It becomes x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 0. But the square root of 0 is 0. This is why you don't even write it. Square root of 0 is 0, and then you have plus or minus 0. You might say that I have 2 solutions, but no, because plus and minus 0 are both equal to 0. So you have one single solution. So this is a very important feature of quadratic equations. If I have a quadratic equation, I might have 2 answers. Okay? Or I might have only one single answer. But sometimes I do not have any answers, which was not the case for the first degree equations. For example, can you imagine an equation, very simple example, that is quadratic, but there are no solutions to it? Yes?
X squared equals minus 1.
Yes. X squared, or let me write it, yes, x squared is equal to minus 1. We will study this equation if you take Math 4 with me. That is under the title of complex numbers. But we don't have that complex numbers. There is one part in complex numbers in your book, which is eliminated by schoolwork. So we will not go through complex numbers at all. So in Math 2C, when I give you this equation and I ask you, is there any solution? You answer no. Why? Can you find an answer so whose squared is -1? It is clearly not. Why? Because no matter what I choose for x, positive, 0, or negative, when I raise it to power 2, it becomes a non-negative number. So the left-hand side for every choice of x is non-negative. The right side is negative, -1. It is not possible to make a non-negative number equal to a negative number. So this is the end of the story. So it doesn't mean it is wrong. If I give you this in the equation, you cannot raise your hand and say, Baba, this equation is wrong. No. If I ask you to solve this equation, you just simply write there are no. If you want, you can phrase it real solutions. In this course, if you don't write real, I don't bother because we only study real numbers, but in Math 4 we have two types of numbers, real numbers and complex numbers. So then in that case it means something. So here, if you want to be precise, write no real solutions, but if you just write no solutions, I accept it from you. So by these three simple examples, this is something you need to understand, that for quadratic equations there are three possibilities, okay? Either I have two answers, or I have one answer, or I have no answers, which was not the case for the first degree equation. But of course, the hard part of this, if I want to ask you what is the general form, listen. If I want to ask you what is the general form of a quadratic equation, the general form of a quadratic equation is not the ones only consisting x squared. They might also consist of x term. Okay? So this is the most general quadratic equation. In all these equations, I put x squared, but x was absent. So you already know how to solve them. If x squared is there, but x is absent, it is Math 1C lesson, even though then I didn't tell you about it. Yes? All these questions, x squared, we do not have x. We just have x squared in all of them. And you know how to solve it, so that is not a new lesson. It's a Math 1C lesson. Yes? Is that clear? But here, let us say I can give you the formula for solving this all the time, but for the first thing, from a pedagogical point of view, might be it is better to get closer to the problem little by little. So today I want to discuss about these problems in which C is 0. Okay, so in other words, I want to tell you how to solve these types of equations. It's a quadratic equation, but not in its full generality. In its full generality, you should have x squared term, you should have x term, you should have a constant term. Yes, this is the most general one. We will discuss about this, and then we'll spend a lot of time to understand this equation better. But now I am telling you that if x term is absent, this is Math 1C lesson. If C is absent, is today's lesson. And if none of them is absent, will be the next lesson. Yes? So today I just want to teach you this, which is extremely simple. Instead of me teaching you, I want to ask your opinion. For example, let me say that x squared plus 2x equals to 0. And I want you to solve this equation for me. Remember the meaning of the word solve. Solve is a terminology between mathematicians. What is the meaning of solving an equation? Yes? All. I am emphasizing on the word all. Even if you can randomly guess. For example, random guessing is extremely simple. X equals to 0. Because if x is 0, this part is 0, this part is 0, so the sum is 0, so x equals to 0 is the answer. It's one of the answers. But you cannot write x equals to 0 and happy that you solve the equation. Because solve means finding all of them. Are you listening to me? x squared plus 2x equals to 0. So x equals to 0 is a solution. It is easy to guess here, yes? But that is not even, guess is correct, that is not solve. Solve means finding all of them. Okay, can you tell me a systematic way to solve? But I give you a hint. It needs factorization from Math 1C. Yes?
Factorize x.
X. Why do you think it will help? You do understand this is not at all factorization. But I'm telling you that what we learned about factorization is helping us to solve a different problem in a different context. Okay, so we factorize this. So by the way, can I give this question in the exam in this form and I ask you factorize? Factorize the following what?
X.
Factorize the following, what should I put there?
Equation.
No, the correct one. I cannot say factorize an equation. I can ask solve an equation. But if I start with the word factorize, I should say factorize the following. No, make it simple, come on. Expression. Be careful about these words. If I give you this in the exam and I say factorize the following equation, then it means that I don't know my job. Equation cannot be factorized. We can use factorization to solve them, but I cannot ask you to factorize them. You understand what I mean? It's just a language, so you have to respect the grammars. So here I am not asking you to factorize. I am asking you to solve the equation, but I am telling you what we learn in factorizing the expressions will help me to solve this equation. As Shah said, I take x out. It doesn't mean that I am factorizing. I am factorizing the left side. I am not factorizing the whole thing. I am factorizing the left side equals to 0. And now can you explain why do you think it is useful? So when you write this, I agree with you, you have written something right. But why this is useful? Yes?
So now we can see like what the parentheses, obviously something times 0 is 0.
Mm-hmm.
So either x has to be 0 or the parentheses.
Yes, because we know something which is only for only this number, no other numbers. If the product of two numbers is equal to 0, it cannot happen unless at least one of them is 0. You cannot say this for any other number. Be careful. If I give you two numbers, multiplication is 1, I don't know anything about A and B. Because A might be 1, B might be 1, A might be 2, B might be 1 over 2, A might be 3, B might be 1 over 3. I don't know anything about A and B. Be careful. If I write instead of 1, if I write 2, I don't know anything about A and B. I mean, I know something, but there are infinitely many possibilities in front of me. Yes? But the only number that we can say something is only 0. Why? Because if the product of two numbers is 0, I can be certain about one fact. Either this is 0, or that is 0, or of course both of them. Yes, this is always the case. And I will refer to this as the zero product rule. So if someone asks you what is this, what does this phrase mean? The phrase is simple. If the product of two or more numbers is equal to 0, then at least one of them has to be 0. Yes? And this rule, we do not have a one product rule. We do not have a two product rule. Only 0 product rule. Yes? So now, why factorization is useful? It is now clear because if I ask you what this is, now this is one reason why factorization is important. Because factorization is writing that expression as a product. And that is 0 product rule, not 0 sum rule. Okay? So the 0 product rule tells you this number, I don't know this, I don't know this, these are two numbers, I know something. They are multiplied and it is 0. So how many options are available in front of me? Either this one is 0 or this one is 0. This one is 0 is already my solution. But this one is 0 means x is what? minus 2, and that's it. Okay? Is there other possibilities? No. Because if x is not 0 and if x not minus 2, neither this one is 0 nor that one is 0. And if I have two non-zero numbers, it is not possible for the product to be 0. So it means that yes, I solved it for all. There are two numbers only, and these are these numbers. Okay? So you see, I want these. I gave you a lot of information, but the problem is simple. When I give you, I cannot ask you factorize the equation. I can ask you solve the equation, but you learned factorization method is useful to solve this equation. I want you to understand the differences. I didn't factorize the equation. I used factorization as a method to solve the problem. These are important differences. Okay, so this is extremely simple. So if you have a quadratic equation, B is absent, is Math 1C lesson. If you have a quadratic equation, C is absent, this method, which is the zero product rule, is the solution. What happens if none of them is 0? We will start talking about that from the next lessons. Okay, so let me give you some more examples here. Okay, so for example, if I give you this equation, I would give you, for example, 4x to the power of 2 minus 3x equals to 0. Okay? I want you to understand this is today's lesson. Do you understand that? Because you want to solve an equation. Is it quadratic equation? Yes, because the highest power is 2. But what type of second degree equation it is? Of the type that C is 0. Why? Because x squared is there, x is also there, the constant term is not there. Whenever the constant term is not there, you need to remember the zero product rule will solve your problem. So this means that to solve this equation, you have to use what you learn as factorization. And it is always simple. What do you factor? X. Yes, there is no trick there. So you factor x out. What is left? 4x minus 3 equals to 0. Okay, and again, this is 0, so this is the product, so that is the zero product rule. So what is the answer? Either this one is 0 or this one is 0. But of course, this one is 0, you have to still solve it. You move 3 to the other side, and then you divide by 4. So 3/4 is one solution, the other solution is x equals to 0. Yes? Okay, one more question is something like this. For example, what happens if I have 5x squared is equal to 10x? This is a little bit dangerous because what do you usually do is to divide by x. Okay, I want to write it with the red color so that you can understand the difference. If I want to solve this, one solution is some students divide by 5x. Okay, let us see what happens. If I divide by 5x, I divide the right hand side by 5x. So what happens here? What is this answer? X. What is this answer? 2. And they are happy that they solved the problem. Okay? It is not totally wrong, but it is not complete. So remember, whenever second degree power is left there and you cannot get rid of it, it is not first degree equation. It is a second degree equation, so you have to use its own methods. So this is not, I want you to not do this. This is one of those cases that you have to be aware of. I know that some of you will do this mistake again in the exam, but that's up to you. I am just warning you. Don't do that. Okay? So you will see why. If I want to follow the method that I described to you, tell me what to do. Yes? Move. Yes. We have to move this to the other side. So it becomes, why? Because we have to put it in the standard form. So is this a quadratic equation? Yes, because x squared is present. What type of quadratic equation? Is it Math 1C lesson? No, because x is there. But is this the most hard? Is it the hardest one? No, because c is 0. There is no constant. So what was the rule? To factorize. If you want, you can factor only x. If you want, you can factor 5x. If you like factorization in complete form. Yes?
Just to clarify, 2 is not a wrong solution, but the other ones were.
Yes, but this is not solved. 2 is one of the solutions indeed. It's not wrong. Yes? I will tell you why this is the source of, what is the source of this error here. So here you factor what out? 5x out. So what's left? X. What's left? 2. Yes? And now can I use zero product rule? Yes, because this is one number I don't know. This is one number I don't know, but I know something. The product is 0. So it means either this one is 0 or this one is 0. This one is 0, what is the answer? This is a first degree equation. Why? Because the power is 1. So you don't forget what you learned in Math 1C will apply here, because that's first degree. So you divide by 5. What's the answer? 0 over 5. What is this? 0. And then, of course, what is the answer here? 2. So you see 2 is one of the answers, so it was not totally wrong. But you missed the second answer. And it means that this is not solved, because solve means all of them. Now, why this is, because it seems reasonable, why this do you think it is not complete? Suddenly it misses that point. The reason is that, do you know the answer? Yes?
Yeah, because then we only get one solution.
No, yes, I know. But why do you think? Because this also seems very reasonable. My question is that why apparently you are doing something reasonable and getting one answer, and you are doing another reasonable thing, you are getting 2 answers. This, you need to understand why. The reason is that I am not allowed to divide by 5x unless I know x is not 0. So when I divide by 5x, implicitly, even without mentioning it, I am assuming if x is not 0. So in other words, if x is not 0, the answer is 2. That's correct. If x is not 0, the answer is 2. But unfortunately, x equals to 0 is also an answer, which in this method I am not considering. Do you understand what I mean? Because when I divide, I didn't tell you directly, but I am not allowed to divide unless I know what I am dividing by is not 0. But I don't know that, because I don't know x. So I don't know 5x. So it might happen that 5x is 0. So when I divide by 5x, it means I am assuming that x is not 0, then let us see what happens. Okay, if x is not 0, this happens. Then that is not wrong. But that is not the whole story, because then you need to ask yourself, what if x is 0? Okay? So it means that somehow, if you go back here and say now, if x is 0, the left side is 0, the right hand side is also 0, so x equals to 0 is a solution, and add it here by hand, that is correct. But don't do that, because the book, they haven't talked about this. So remember, if c is not there, one way, move everything to the left, factorize, use a zero product rule. Yes? If b is 0, it's even I don't need to explain, because that's Math 1 C lesson. If b is 0. If c is 0, this method. If none of them 0, we will talk about that tomorrow. Okay, just wait that I can check the attendance and we are done. Thank you.